What a way to make a living. Crypto is on the rise, making that dough in the crypto paradigm. Watching it go, buying low, selling high. Riding the wave, I'm here to stay, living in the digital age. No banks, no fees, just decentralized. It's crypto paradise. Ooh. No banks, no fees.
Alrighty, let's kick this thing off. Good morning from Paradise Surfers. My name is Crypto Amaru, joined as always by Nick, the Crypto Hitman, and it is Tuesday, December 30th. Only a few more days left in the year. We're looking ahead, though. We are looking ahead to 2026. We believe 2026 will be a bullish year for Bitcoin and crypto, and we're going to lay out a number of different reasons why we believe that to be the case. Of course, we're going to cover the charts today, as always. We will cover what's going on in precious metals, because I guess we're precious metal influencers. Isn't that right, Nick? Gold experts, as it were, silver experts. I'm just kidding around, but we will look, because it is all connected. It's all interrelated, guys. And the correction on gold and the correction on silver should be a bullish catalyst for cryptos and Bitcoin. We'll get into that story today. So, all right. Hope you got the link shared and everyone's tuning in here. By the way, remember to like, share, subscribe, folks. We appreciate you tuning in every single day. Hope you guys like the new backgrounds, too, by the way. Do we have any charts to cover? How are things looking over on with our favorite asset, gold?
Yeah, I mean, gold having a sell-off. What was crazy is I saw data. The gold was on like 4%, 4.5% yesterday. And the value in which it dropped in one day is more than the entire Bitcoin market capitalization. It would be equivalent to Bitcoin going to zero right now. That's how much gold dropped yesterday. And when you look at the chart, it's like, oh, that ain't much. Gold went from 45.50 down to 4,300. That would literally be equivalent to Bitcoin going to zero and Ethereum going to negative, and somebody knocking on our door saying you owe money for owning Ethereum.
Yeah, man, we're in a tiny market cap class of asset. I keep going back to that. Having this argument with the gold bugs. Gold's better, blah blah blah. I don't see how gold, as of today, if you had $1,000 to put somewhere, $10,000 to put somewhere, and you're looking to double your money in, I don't know, 5 years, 10 years, or sooner. Gold is not going to provide those kind of returns. The asset's too big. The market cap's too big. It takes too much capital to move it up or down. You get a 4% move. That's a couple trillion. So we are in a very tiny asset here with Bitcoin. We're very, very early. Remember where we are in sort of the adoption curve of Bitcoin. The first 5 years, it was essentially unknown, right? So just set that aside. I think really average investor could only get involved in 2017 when Coinbase came out. And then only a year ago or so, year and a half now, could regular everyday sort of stock type investors get in with the ETFs. So we're very, very early. The asset class is tiny. I'm happy for gold, guys, as I said yesterday, as I've been saying on my social media. But I will be sticking with my Bitcoin because I think the upside is tremendous relative to gold.
Yeah, and I'll show the gold chart. I was showing it. It looks like I said, we sold off from $4,550 down to $4,300. That was the equivalent of Bitcoin going to zero when you look at market capitalization, which is insane. Shows you how early we are. I wouldn't be surprised if this is an A down, you get some kind of B relief rally, and then you get a C down back to these moving averages. And that would be nice, because then maybe we can see another rotation like we did right here. Remember, Bitcoin went from 80,000 to 116 on this gold drop. Will we get a replication if gold wants to drop down and settle down again? We shall see. Again, it's not retail gold buyers rotating directly into Bitcoin, but it is institutional players. It is institutional money. And there is some gold bugs that slowly make their way over to Bitcoin. I mean, myself, of course, I'm younger. I collected gold. I got gold jewelry, silver coins, and back in 2017, sold a lot of that stuff for more Bitcoin, Zen, Ethereum, whatever it was back in the day, Neo, when it turned from ant shares to Neo, etc. So it is possible, and historically, we just saw it here. We saw the same action right here, where this was the gold top, and Bitcoin surged on the back of this. This was like Bitcoin 50,000, And by the time I went here, Bitcoin was like 100,000. So we saw this rotation happen historically. We saw it back here in other cycles as well. So we'll see how that plays out. Today, Bitcoin is right around $88,000. Not doing much from what we've been through. I mean, it's putting people to sleep. You can see it in viewership. You can see it in content creation, whatever. But you're still putting in higher lows for Bitcoin. So higher lows are good for a major bottom. And we're seeing neutral on indicators, which means you do have upside possibility. You want to get above these moving averages. And this one keeps coming down. It's all the way down to like 90,000 now. So it doesn't take much to get above the moving averages, close above it for the first time probably since like October. I mean, for Bitcoin, last time we closed above it was October 27th. For Ethereum, last time we closed above the 300 moving average was like October 8th. So it's been months and months and months. And you can see here, these things are getting very close. You want the yellow line to cross from below the red line. That is a bullish cross. You want Ethereum to close above the red line, which would be above 3,000 mental barrier. And then we can start attacking the upside. Obviously, Ethereum looks even cleaner for higher lows. I mean, what are your thoughts? We're sitting here bullish. We got macros on our side. The chart looks pretty good. Obviously, alt's still looking ugly. Pulse chain near a new all-time low. BNB still not really catching a bid. Solana not really catching a bid. But we do see the big dogs, Bitcoin and Ethereum, trying to hold these consolidation levels. And the macros say they should work higher.
I do not hate this consolidation we are going through. We've said on the channel now for a couple months that we think the end of the year is going to be chop and consolidation, and that you're going to have to wait until probably January to get some sort of relief rally and some uptrend on Bitcoin and Ethereum, and probably going to have to wait longer for alts. So that's just the name of the game, guys. Patience, patience, patience. I do want to circle back, if you don't mind. There's a Marty Party tweet that I had shared in the group there, sort of circling back to our little discussion around gold and relative to Bitcoin. But yeah, look, end of 25 was going to be consolidation. We've talked a lot about the tax harvesting that's going on. We've talked somewhat about the options that are expiring. There's a lot of reasons why you're going to see a lid on the price of Bitcoin, but I wouldn't be surprised. The tax harvesters, they're selling now to sort of lock in some losses for tax purposes, and assuming they're not completely exiting the market forever, they will actually buy back in come early January. So I wouldn't be surprised we start to see some relief come early Jan. But I love this tweet from Marty Party. Definitely recommend following him. He was kind of one of the guys that broke the story around Binance, manipulating the leverage traders and wrecking them and so on October 10th. But anyway, I like this because he's talking essentially here about what is going to happen over the next 5, 10, 15 years with the older generations relinquishing power, and then also, passing on to the next realm, as I like to say. And what is that going to mean for Bitcoin? And it's a story that we've talked about a lot. If you're looking for an asymmetric bet, Bitcoin is here, guys. It's staring you in the face. There's a lot of money that's going to be passed on and inherited by our generation, and that's going to cause, I think, a huge amount of capital flow into Bitcoin. So I don't know if you got a chance to check this out, but it's kind of that gold versus Bitcoin story. I know gold's hot right now, but in 15 years, I just don't see it being nearly as popular.
Yeah, I mean, the younger generation lives in a digital world, so they need a digital currency. And that's been kind of the trend for Bitcoin over the years. It kind of started with the OG cyberpunks, the gamers who kind of wrap their head around it, and it's grown into that. And I do think a lot of wealth is going from older generations to younger generations. And the older generations also, you got to say whether they go to Bitcoin or what they go to, they're in far less risky assets. They're in indices. They're in dividend-paying stocks. So at the very least, these things will go from literally zero to no risk assets, bonds, whatever, cash markets, to more individual stock plays, maybe crypto stock plays, and higher risk assets, of which Bitcoin and Ethereum fall into that category. So there is a higher chance that we do see some of those cash flows. Now, again, we've been saying that for years. But, the trend is your friend. From 2016 to now, look at the price of Bitcoin. So the money's got to be coming from somewhere. And each and every year, the older generation either dies off or gives inheritance or gives whatever to the younger generation who is more interested in these risk-on assets. And we see that with gambling and sports betting. Sports betting absolutely exploding because the younger generation is betting in in big numbers and is very active within the sports trenches as well. So we'll see how it all plays out, but I do agree with the sentiment there. I think we had another one. This one I wanted to look at. Rob over here talking about so many bears looking into 2026, and at this point I have no idea what they're seeing that makes them bearish. Let me explain why I'm extremely bullish and why liquidity dynamics say the exact opposite. The government has only one way out of debt burden: grow the economy hot enough to improve the debt to GDP ratio. They can't cut spending enough to matter. This means GDP elevated, running fiscal policy aggressively, and refinancing 12 trillion in debt at the lowest possible rates. This is what Trump has been preaching on, and why he says Powell is too slow, because he wants to do this at a lower interest rate to save the nation money and to reduce the national debt. If you refinance $38 trillion or whatever they got to refinance at a higher interest rate, obviously you guys understand how credit cards work, how car loans work, and mortgages work. The higher the interest rate, the more money you're going to pay over time. So there's two massive structural changes are converging in Q1 and Q2 of 2026 to make this possible. First, stablecoins. They are already the 17th largest holder of U.S. government debt at roughly $200 billion in treasuries. And where are they building that? They're building that on Ethereum. This is why we've been saying Ethereum will continue to outperform Bitcoin. It is outperforming Bitcoin right now by 95% since we gave you the rotation buy from Bitcoin to Ethereum. When the Clarity Act passes the Senate, likely Q1 2026, institutional adoption explodes. The market could easily scale from $250 billion to $500 billion or more at 75% treasury backing. That's hundreds of billions in additional structural demand hitting exactly when the government needs to refinance. Any comments on the first part of that tweet? You're muted.
Well, I think a lot of the stablecoin innovation or evolution is somewhat priced in. This has been a story that's been ongoing for many months now. We understand that the Treasury has a difficult time selling these Treasury assets, and here's the stablecoin buyers. Now they're forced to buy them. That's what the Clarity Act did. It said you have to buy Treasuries. So good for the U.S. government, who couldn't sell their shitty debt elsewhere, and good for, I think, the stablecoin issuers who are able to earn interest, obviously, on their holdings. But great for, Bitcoin OGs and Bitcoin degens like ourselves, who are happy to see these stable coins gain further adoption, and of course all on the Ethereum chain. So I think that's been a known story, that's priced in. As far as at least in the near term here, we'll see where progress takes us. But I think the SLR relief, this was we can get on to the second part of this in a second, but I think this was a bit eye-opening to me. I did not know this was happening in the background. This change had happened, and I think it's actually a pretty big deal. So maybe you can go into that. We can talk about it a bit.
Yeah, second SLR relief. In November, regulators approved final rules dropping the enhanced supplementary leverage ratio for the 8 largest U.S. banks from 5% down to 3.5 to 4.25%. This releases $219 billion in capital requirements, translating to a whopping $5 to $6 trillion in additional balance sheet capacity. Implementation is the 1st of April 2026, but they can adopt this early in January should they wish. Obviously, we think the modern banking system is fucked up. They can lend out much more than they have, and that's where you can get the House of Cards effect. But it does free up $5 to $6 trillion in additional balance sheet capacity, and more money in the markets means higher prices for scarce assets and finite assets like crypto if it finds its way into that.
Well, this is how you get the business cycle to ramp up, and for hiring to ramp up, and spending across the economy to ramp up. And I do think a lot of it will trickle into the financial markets. Absolutely. And he talks about what happened during COVID when they adjusted the SLR requirements then. And obviously that was, in a wider context of rates at zero, money being sent to Americans in the form of refunds, things of that nature. So they were running it hot across the board. But I think this SLR relief wasn't known to me. I don't think it's known to a lot of people in the crypto markets. Maybe the more sophisticated institutional types know what's coming. But plenty of reasons, guys, plenty of reasons why Trump, they have to run the economy hot. Like setting aside the economic benefits, setting aside the refinancing of the debt. From a political standpoint, they can't go into November with the economy languishing and people worried about jobs and inflation still being kind of in the back of everyone's mind. It can't be like it is today. they're going to need to push things aggressively to improve the economy leading into the midterms. So, yeah, I'm glad this guy's putting out this sort of nuanced analysis here. I gave him a follow, suggest other people do. Seems like a smart guy. Anything else you wanted to cover on this little analysis here?
Rate cuts are healing bank capital from security losses. Money is rotating from money market funds back to deposits. Stablecoin growth is providing structural treasury demand. SLR relief is removing the regulatory constraint on banks. All of this converges in Q1 and Q2 of 2026 because we think there's going to be another rate cut in January. And if there's not in January, there's going to be at least 2 more rate cuts before you get the new Fed in May. And all the other things that we just talked about. Again, last time this happened, we did see an 800% move out of Bitcoin. Again, it was COVID, a little different times. But this does spur the business cycle that we have been talking about, which is the ISM. So watch the ISM chart, guys, and let's see how this plays out. Because there's a lot of things that are leading us to believe that the ISM could heat up. And when the ISM heats up, that's when the fun begins. Look where we're at. 48.2. This was Bitcoin top in 2013. This was Bitcoin top in 2016. This was Bitcoin top in 2021. It doesn't look like Bitcoin topped. Here, that's all I know. Do we get to into the 50s? Do we have expansion up here into the 60s? Doesn't matter. We got a long way to go. The business cycle says it really hasn't even begun. And we do have a president, a Fed, and everything in place that wants to get things rolling for the business cycle. And that regulatory compliance on the banks, like you said, is a big thing for the business cycle that I didn't even really know about. Happened in November, but doesn't kick into effect until January of 2026 and April of 2026. So that lines up perfectly with what we're seeing with rate cuts, QE, and everything else that we think could spur an elongated bull market for Bitcoin and Ethereum here, and why we believe these higher lows that Bitcoin and Ethereum are forming right now are very strong, very important for the uptrend and moving forward into 2026.
It's actually miraculous that Bitcoin ran from 16,000 to 126 in light of high rates, QT, no business expansion. It's actually pretty amazing. So imagine what can happen when you finally get easing, when you finally get capital flowing into the economy and into financial markets. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure people who watch the show, God, you guys are perma bulls. Of course you're bullish. And yeah, I am a perma bull on Bitcoin and Ethereum because I think it's very, very early. I think the upside is tremendous. But even setting aside the long-term, potential of this asset class, I think 2026, guys, you never had 2 years of red in a row on Bitcoin, and it looks like 2025 will end up slightly in the red. We'll end up slightly in the red here. So, yeah, we are bullish. We are bullish on 26. Hope you guys stay locked in. Thank you for joining, everyone, and watching the stream as it's going live. Of course, you can watch it back on YouTube or X as well. Good morning to all you loyal listeners. Good morning, NJ Dub, Moon Mutt. I'm going to say shout out to Martin, as always. And then we got a question from Rob. Nick, what do you think of Zen in regards to Zcash, I guess, relative to Zcash, Monero, and other privacy coins?
Yeah, I mean, we've been on Zen. We gave you some buys on Zen at, what is it, 668, 605, and 942. Currently, we are at $9.56. So up on all three of those trades we gave you. It did run to like $25 when Zen had that big massive run. Look, I don't know what's going to happen. We're going to get another run in privacy. Zen looks like, or Zcash looks like it wants to go to a new all-time high when the market turns around. And we are starting to see privacy on my newsfeed again. I saw Cointelegraph talking about privacy, Grayscale talking about privacy. More other big influencers are kind of talking about privacy sector because they're highlighting its performance in the past quarter, because it's one of the things that's been green compared to Bitcoin and ETH. So, it looks good. Zen is less of a privacy coin and more of a privacy protocol. They relaunched the Zen token over on Base Network, so they're trying to get in front of that Base alt season whenever Base launches their coin, which I believe is inevitable. But number two, they're trying to be a protocol layer for privacy tokens and other privacy projects to build upon. So it's a little different than a Monero and a Zcash. If you believe privacy is important, but you don't understand how any other privacy token could compete with Monero or Zcash, I think Zen is a good option for you because you're really relying on the privacy sector, privacy narrative, or somebody else to come up with a big privacy idea and to build it on Horizon's protocol rather than Horizon itself leading the way in that sector.
A relatively easy way to make money when the alt season finally comes to fruition is to look to see what category had been running earlier in the cycle. Look to see where it's at presently. And you can sort of forecast, okay, I think there's momentum here. I think there's some juice behind this narrative. There's some whales playing in this category. given all that, I think privacy is going to continue to outperform into 2026. We've seen it now with Zcash. I mean, the fact it's sort of knocking on the doors of all-time highs when rest of altcoin world has done absolutely nothing, when Bitcoin's been consolidating, when ETH's been consolidating, and here's Zcash, still getting mind share, still getting capital. So yeah, our job here at Crypto Paradise is going to be to help you guys and help ourselves find the new and upcoming gems in the privacy sector. And we have our ears to the street, as it were, and we're hunting for you guys. We're looking for some low cap gems in the privacy sector because I do believe it's going to continue to outperform just based on how momentum trades work in the crypto space.
Let's look at a project, a big project that has been underperforming in a big way, and let's see why is that. Cardano ADA down to 35 cents, nearing the low for the move that it had back on December 26th. Why is there a capitulation in ADA when you have Zcash going up, Zen's going up, ETH is consolidating but higher lows, Bitcoin higher lows? Well, this is why. Look at this. Charles Hoskinson, the co-founder of Ethereum and founder/face of Cardano and its ADA token, has just called it quits. Yes, a top 10 asset founder hinted at walking away to, quote, change the culture as he is tired of being degraded on a daily basis. If this isn't a low indicator, I don't know what is. I know he's probably going to sleep on it. He'll still be around. As soon as those green candles, he'll feel better. But he is capitulating in a big way. Here's Charles's quote. No, I'm just going to disengage completely and let AI do the job. You don't ask people to enter a toxic hellscape and just tell them to ignore the smell. You leave. Your attitude is part of the problem. Get 1 million followers and be bombarded every day, single day with you're fat, you're a fraud, you're a liar, you're evil, you're stupid, you accomplished nothing, you should be in jail, you're a horrible human being, you stole money, you scammed retail. The list goes on and on. On every single X post, every single engagement, to even read good comments, I have to swim through a river of shit. It's not worth it anymore. When people leave, the culture change. If they stay, it doesn't. I mean, if this isn't an exit strategy for Charles Hoskinson, a full-blown blowout of mental capacity, I don't know what is. And could this be a bottom indicator for ADA, or is it a bottom indicator for the overall sentiment in the crypto market?
Yeah, when I read this, I couldn't quite believe my eyes, but I think he is ultimately going to leave. I thought it was a joke at first, but then you read it again, and you're like, holy shit, yeah. This guy has been dragged through hell. And look, I have been a critic of ADA, and we'll talk about why that is in a moment. But I don't think Charles deserved all the vitriol and the hate. You know, it's not like he rugged you. It's not like he just stole your money. Yeah, the price of the asset went down. Yes, it didn't get the adoption that maybe we had all hoped if you're an early, Cardano believer. And certainly it's never going to beat Ethereum. It's not going to beat Solana. It's not going to beat BNB. I mean, from a fundamental standpoint, it hasn't done great. But this guy did not deserve to be called a fad of this or that every single day. I mean, that's terrible. But I do think, look, yeah, I think he's done. And if you're holding on to Cardano, I think you just have to ask yourself, what do you have to hang your hat on at this point if he is in fact leaving? I mean, he was the figurehead. As much vitriol and hate as he got, there were people that loved him. He would go live. It got the chain a lot of attention. But from an actual fundamentals and adoption standpoint, look, we've been in crypto for 8 years now, full time. Nick, a little bit longer. And we've worked with hundreds of projects, hundreds, helping them raise funds, marketing, whatever the case may be. Not a single one that I've come across. Actually, there was one who wanted to launch on Cardano, and we passed on that one. No one uses this chain, guys. It's a ghost chain. It doesn't have the TVL, it doesn't have the DeFi, it doesn't have the institutions, it doesn't have really anything other than Charles as a figurehead. And if he's gone, what is there? So if you're in that asset, I would, not financial advice, but consider diversifying out, because I just don't see how this gets better for Cardano given the lack of the fundamentals, and now he's gone apparently.
Yeah, we haven't really touched Cardano in quite a long time. If I zoom out on this chart, I probably would need to go like a monthly chart to even see when last time we did this. It was last cycle, and we made like a 10x on it. Yeah, it was down here. We bought this thing around, I don't know, 3 cents, and we were up here selling it around this level, around 30. So we didn't get the most meat, but we got like a 10x out of Cardano. But since then, I mean, if you zoom out on the chart, it doesn't look terrible, guys, either. I mean, it's really following a lot of the other altcoins. But the problem is, like you said, it is kind of a ghost chain. We never have anybody say, hey, we want to launch on Cardano. Now, I will say from a tech stack perspective, they got AOHK, etc. But really what was the meat and potatoes behind Cardano was the promise of the future integration with the world and institutions, which could still happen. But that was only believed because Charles Hoskinson literally did live shows almost daily, went to conferences, shook hands with Donald Trump, went to government meetings, was signing documents arm in arm with Brian Armstrong. That's why there was hope, and there was a little FOMO for Cardano back when Trump first was getting into office because of that. You see this run up back here. But, you know, the biggest thing now is if he is truly crashing out and going to walk away, that's the one thing that they had. That's the one thing I told about Pulse Chain. I'm like, Richard Hart, you gave shit to Charles Hoskinson and Vitalik and these guys, but at least they're out here evangelizing the chain, being the face of the chain. It's just like, you know, surf's way down, but if me and Crypto Amaru just stopped doing Crypto Paradise, well, why would you hold the token anymore? There's nothing left. That's kind of how I feel about ADA. If Charles indeed walks away, what is left? Now, again, I think he probably just had a bad holiday. Price is down. He holds other crypto, I'm sure. I'm sure he will sleep this off, come back stronger, because nothing fixes bad morale like a green candle. And if Ethereum goes up and Bitcoin goes up, ADA is going to go up at least enough to get him motivated to come back. But yeah, this was a big blow to Cardano, and you can see that in the price chart as it went to new lows for the move the day after Christmas and is attacking those lows once again, even while you know, the overall market's kind of holding. Very similar chart pattern here between Cardano and Pulse Chain. But the difference is Pulse Chain much lower valuation. Cardano's a top 10 asset. Pulse Chain is not even top 100. Pulse Chain has potentially hundreds of millions of dollars to funnel into it. And instead of crashing out, we saw a video from Richard Hart digging in and saying he's not giving up. He's going to keep pivoting. It sucks. It doesn't feel good. He's in the same position. But now he's getting more active while it looks like Charles Hoskinson is ready to give up.
I don't know if he's going to come back. I mean, I guess if all his followers come flocking to social media. Charles, we love you. We're sorry. You're not fat. Your body's great. You know, all that stuff. Okay, guys, I'll come back. I'll do it for you. You know, some like pathetic, you know, so some girl on social media. Do I look hot? You know, whatever, that kind of mindset. But can you really trust anymore once a tweet like that goes out that this guy's heart is really in it? That he's going to continue to grind it out and go to the conferences and pitch this thing and try to grow it if, you know, essentially he's come out with a tweet that says, I quit, I give up, and I can't handle the vitriol and the hate. Even if he does come back, I just don't see this chain ever really doing well from a true fundamental standpoint. Hype, sure. Okay, fine. I didn't get hype for a couple months during a bull run. A little speculation that, oh, wow, he's going to sign up some government, you know, entity to use the chain. But does anyone use this chain, guys? Like, honestly, is it even connect? I mean, can you even go on your MetaMask and add Cardano to the MetaMask and to use Uniswap? I don't think so. Because I think it got its own language, its own everything. It's not EVM. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I don't think I am. Anyway, I don't think anyone uses this chain. It doesn't have the fundamentals. Now the founder's telling you he's quitting. I would just... Again, not financial advice. If I held any, I would say, all right, there's probably better bets out there. I got to cut my loss before this gets uglier.
All right, we got Hexbull in the house. Check it on my two favorite Moon Bros. No, guys, crypto's not down due to tax harvesting. We are in a bear market. There's the Hexbull, been calling for $40,000 Bitcoin and I think $1,200 ETH. I will say, since you started calling for that, we are slightly higher on both Bitcoin and ETH. Not out of the waters. I know you did say that, hey, we could have a dead cat bounce to 110,000. My reply is I would love 110,000 Bitcoin and $5,000 ETH right now, and then to make a decision. But here's the text dev finally getting on pace with Crypto Paradise. We've been saying this now for I don't even know how long, 6 months, 8 months, I don't know. Time merges together. But now other big accounts are starting to see what we see. Let's simplify things. The 4-year cycle was only the 4-year cycle because the last 3 business cycles were 4 years, and the halving just happened to line up with the business cycle, which is why Bitcoin caught on and had even more momentum during those time periods. The global business cycle has always driven Bitcoins. When it topped, Bitcoin topped. I showed you the ISM earlier in the live show. It topped it in 2013, topped it in 2017, it called the top in 2021, and right now it's done nothing. When it reversed off the bottom, Bitcoin went parabolic. Even the shapes of the charted business cycle metrics have dictated the shapes of Bitcoin cycles. ISM is a well-accepted measure of the business cycle. Look at the last 3 years, a mini cycle at best, flat at worst. ISM never pushed above 50, and thus crypto never went parabolic, halving or not. Why? A strong argument for the 4-year business cycle cadence has been the 4-year refinancing cycle of the U.S. debt. This time, the U.S. holds an additional 1.5 years of average debt maturity due to COVID-induced rate crash, likely extending the business cycle by 1.5 years. Raul and BitJulian have spoken about this at length, along with Crypto Paradise. I'll add that in there. 1.5 year extension is not something we're really on. I've been on kind of saying it's going to extend for 1 year, and we get a 5-year cycle, not a 4. But a 1.5 would push you into 2027. Now to look ahead. The green signal has always mirrored ISM. More recently, it has led. What do you see? A major uptick off the bottom. The stuff that starts Bitcoin runs, not ends them. Not on the hourly chart, on the monthly and quarterly chart. ISM is expected to follow and finally lift off its 3-year floor. 15 years of history tell us what crypto likely does next. So here is what we've been saying. You're not looking at history of the 4-year cycle due to the Bitcoin halving, but you're looking at history based on the ISM readings, which are telling you you still have higher objectives to go, and the business cycle is elongated for 5 years. And this guy, Raul Paul, and everybody else is saying 5.5 years, so they're thinking even higher for longer than we are.
I want to tell you how we can be right and how Hexbull can be right, because we're nice like that, and Hexbull's a smart dude. He's made a lot of money in crypto. I think we should give him some give his theories some credence. But here's the reality as I see it. Excuse me, fixing up my mic. One sec. The 2025, let's call the calendar year of 2025, has been a bear market. For altcoins, that's indisputable. Now, you could argue that because Bitcoin did hit 126, we had moments of outperformance, we had moments of bullishness, a couple months here, a couple months there. Bitcoin, it wasn't in a bear market, but it's gonna end red. We have one more day, guys. We have one more day. It's not going to end green as far as I can tell. So even Bitcoin, looking year over year, will have been in a bear market. So we've been in a bear market. And then that completely aligns with what TechDev's saying, Raul Paul, ourselves, and J-Dub here has a great comment I'll read in a sec. It all aligns with the ISM and the business cycle, because this calendar year 2025 has been flat in terms of the business cycle. We've been bearish pretty much all year. So we've been in the bear market. Hexbull, you're right, it's bearish, but we're looking ahead. We're looking ahead to what 2026 brings, and I think between Fed policy, between what Trump and the Treasury is doing, by the way, I'm sitting on my desk, I'm looking at my $1,404 check that I just got from the government. No joke. The government never sends me money. I usually give them money, and to be fair, I gave them a lot more than $1,400 in taxes. But I just got back $1,400. Wow! And you think I'm not the only guy? They're going to be sending out 100 million of these to people who pay taxes. This is big, beautiful bill refund coming in. That's what that is. So Trump's doing what he can to juice the economy. The Fed will step in and do what they can. They need to refinance the 4 years, debt burden that Raul Paul's talking about. It's all lining up 2026, guys. It's all lining up. So you can be right, we can be right, but 2026 can be bullish.
Yeah, it's interesting. Here's NJ Dub's comment. We were slightly above 50 p.m. in March 2024 and January 2025, which were also the most bullish times this cycle. And you can kind of see that here. Look, this is the highest we got, and then also back here. And if you remember, we kind of topped everything out in February of 2025. That's where everything kind of topped. That's where PTGC was worth $450 million market cap. Now it's worth 90. That's where a lot of assets did finally see a moment in the sunshine. And we've been down and to the right since then. And it is interesting, like you said, Bitcoin looking like it is going to have a red year. And Bitcoin never in its history, if you're a history guy, never in its history had back-to-back red years. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I would still love to get 95,000 by the end of the year, but you only got 2 days to go. So you need some green candles. It's not out of the question. We saw gold go down 5% in a day. It wouldn't be crazy for Bitcoin to go up 5% in 2 days. So we'll see. But I think the biggest thing that this guy's talking about is what we've been talking about for months and months and months, is ISM points to higher. Even if you only get to here, that's going to give you a much higher Bitcoin price. You're looking at 150,000, 160,000. You get to here, you're looking at probably closer to 200. And if you get expansion here, you're looking at that $244,000 Bitcoin that I've been talking about as well.
Couple points I want to make. One, I do not think sadly enough, that we'll get that $5,000, that 5% move on Bitcoin in the next few days. And really, the main reason for that is it seems like there are a lot of parties, market makers, exchanges. I don't know who it is really. Maybe it's China. Who knows? That anytime we see a green candle, they're smashing it right back down.
Yeah, it is
with
crazy
massive
that
sell.
December 9th, December 10th, we were right there, $94,900. It's crazy to think. Only 2 weeks
The
ago,
good
we
old
were right
days.
there.
Good old days. I felt richer on those days. But in any event, I just don't know, man. The past month, I mean, because look what happened on December 9th. I'm sure like a day later, probably at 10 a.m. Eastern, the seller reared its ugly head, and bam, we crashed to 4% down, and the longs got wrecked, and on and on we go. So sadly, I just don't see us ending 2025 in the green, but that's okay. I'm not looking to sell now. I got my 10-year plan, my 10-year hodl plan for my Bitcoin. Maybe a little less for my ETH. We'd love to see altcoins come back, but in any event, it's not happening the next couple of days. So we need to look out into January, into February, into March. Think long term, guys. Like, this game doesn't have to be that difficult. I know there's a lot of people on social media. By the way, give me a follow, Crypto Amaru on X, getting very active out there, arguing with people about Somalians and so on. A lot of Bitcoin OGs and maybe newer entrants, man, they are so bearish. And I just can't help but scratch my head a little bit. My assumption is that a lot of them are newer into the market. Perhaps they got in during the Solana meme season. Perhaps they got into NFT mania in 2021. Who knows? But if you've been around as long as I have, and you're still up big because you've been here for a while, you're really not panicked. You're really not worried. I've seen this movie 50 times. The market's going to come back. We'll eventually have a bull market again. My bags will run again. But man, the sentiment on X is cooked, as the Gen Z kids like to say, huh?
Yeah, and I mean, I think another proxy for sentiment, I don't really look too much into this, but we talked about it in the past. The fear and greed index isn't down to single digits like it was, but this is the longest consecutive days of extreme fear in Bitcoin history, and it's trading at $90,000. What do you think happens to Bitcoin's price when fear and greed flips to greedy? I mean, as of December 29th, so yesterday, it was at 24. Still extreme fear. And before that, you can see last month, 25. Last week, 20. Yesterday, 23. And now, 24. The longest consecutive days of extreme fear in Bitcoin history. Meanwhile, let's look at the Bitcoin chart. Since November 21st, higher low, higher low, higher low, consolidating and moving averages, potential bullish cross coming. I don't know. Could it go down again? Sure, because we can go back to single digits, fear and greed. But I'm looking out to 2026 in the macros that we've been talking about now for 6 months. And, you got Trump, you got Senate, you got the House, all pro-crypto. You got a new Fed coming, pro-crypto. You got interest rates that look like they want to go down. You have QE light going on, so we're going to see real QE coming. You have the ISM business cycle saying that we didn't have the normal 4-year cycle. So that means either ISM is broken, or we're going to have a 5-year cycle, or even 6-year cycle. And all that leads me to believe to higher crypto prices. Now, we are moon boys. We are bullish. We need some action to live. Otherwise, I'm going to have to sell my house, and I'm going to be living in a cardboard box. But you also have the institutions who are going big on the infrastructure of crypto and in the investment of Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and others. So if they are wrong, first time in human history that the kings are wrong and the peasants are the best. And I'm sure somebody will be like, well, there's that one time this civilization, the peasants overran the kings. It's like, okay, guys. But just in financial terms, the institutions, the big players, usually can manipulate their way out of bad situations to where they come out on top. And right now, BMNR is down billions of dollars on their investment. Richard Hart is down hundreds of millions on his ETH investment from the Pulse Chain Sacrifice wallet. SBET has been getting staking rewards, but they haven't been able to raise capital. There's FUD. The MicroStrategy was going to go to zero, even though they just raised $2.5 billion, about another $100 million of Bitcoin, putting their money where their mouth is at $88,000 Bitcoin. So, could they all be wrong? And you're right, Mr. 100 followers on Twitter, or the bears in the room? Maybe. All I would say to the bears is, if you're calling for lower levels now, when Bitcoin goes to new all-time highs, don't say that you flipped long and you're a bull the whole time.
I want the bears who are watching, go on Amazon, order yourself a white flag, okay? Because I want to see you waving it.
Did you order
when
yours
we're
yet? Just in
smashing
case?
$126,000 Bitcoin, okay? Be prepared for that because that's absolutely in the cards. We could be wrong too, and I'll get my white flag from Amazon as well, and I'll be ready in case we're wrong. But I don't think we're wrong. I want to go back to the fear and greed index a little bit because, again, some historical sort of context I think is very, very helpful here. It boggles my mind that Bitcoin sitting around $90,000 and all the sort of bullish macros going on around us right now, from the Trump administration's embrace of crypto, the Fed policy, all the stuff we talk about, right? That we would be at longer fear than we had even around the time of the FTX crash, which, if you guys recall, November of 2022, that was the tail end of the Fed's tightening cycle, and that was the tail end of when Bitcoin had dropped from $69,000, the all-time high that printed in 2021, all the way down to 16K. November 2022, the FTX implosion was the culmination of that 1 year downtrend, 1 year bear market, 1 year crypto winter. And not only that, you had one of the biggest exchanges, I think top two or three, FTX, imploding, taking billions and billions of dollars of customers' funds down with it, which of course then led to the Biden administration's crackdown of crypto, where they tried to kill it with lawsuits and legislation and so on. And you're trying to tell me that Bitcoin at $90,000, with the President of the United States, the most powerful man in the world, is embracing and pushing this asset class forward. You're more scared now than you were then. Make that make sense. Make that make sense. So guys, a little bit of historical context, some understanding. It's going to help you out in your crypto journey. Don't get caught in the moment. Everything's going to be fine. Everything is going to be fine, like it always is before.
I think there might have been one more news thing here, but I don't know if Hexbull is going to like it, because it means that Ethereum is definitely not going to go to 1,200. I love Hexbull when he tunes in. First of all, thanks for tuning in, buddy. Second of all, your ties to Pulse Chain Hex. Of course, we want Pulse Chain to do good. But B, because it gives us a different contrast. You know, he comes in here, gives his points. We have something to talk about, and it's always nice to be able to take jabs at each other in the live show. He always does it respectfully, too. That's the difference. Some people, like Charles Hoskinson, is dealing with people calling him fat and a lard and a scammer. Hexbull just comes in here and says, hey, bros, you need to sell. You're about to get your net worth cut in half over the next couple months. So here we go.
Appreciate the bears jumping in. You're absolutely right, man. Go ahead. Sorry.
This is from BMNR Bulls. I'm sure he owns some BMNR, Bitmine, from Thomas Lee and his big ETH maxi. But here we go. On-chain record. Ethereum just hit an all-time high in developer activity. 8.7 million smart contracts deployed in Q4 of 2025. The highest quarter ever. Meanwhile, there's no retail investors or users anywhere in sight, but it seems like the builders are active, and many of the builders are being paid by who? Institutional finance, guys. This isn't speculation, it's builders shipping. More contracts equals more apps, RWAs, stablecoins, and infrastructure. Real usage is accelerating into 2026. If it isn't going to be you, the retail investor, the DeFi, the DGen, it's going to be retail participants as they are getting on chain with stablecoins and with stocks. Wall Street watches price, institutions watch activity. Ethereum is quietly becoming the global settlement layer. ETH is the ticker.
This chart blew my mind, honestly. If you see the amount of contracts deployed in the end of this year, I mean, it sort of belies logic. And I think, speaking from a retail investor standpoint, we're not fielding calls from projects like, hey, we're looking to build this cool DApp, this DeFi protocol, this game, this whatever on Ethereum. We're not really fielding any of those kind of calls right now because retail's pretty much dead. So where's all this activity coming from? It's got to be a lot of institutional driven. Perhaps it's some forward-thinking devs that are like, all right, I foresee the market turning up here and I'm just quietly building. I'm not looking to raise funds, so I'm not getting on calls with guys like Crypto Paradise. But the fact this is at all-time highs by like basically double the previous, let's just say a quarter looks like. This is very, very significant in my view. And yeah, ETH's undervalued, guys, sitting at $3,000. Never even broke its previous all-time high, but for like 1 minute back in August. So yeah, if you're looking for that asymmetric bet that's still not terribly risky, I think Ethereum is it. The ticker is ETH.
Yeah, let's look at the ETH BTC chart. Haven't looked at it in a minute. And here's one we told you. This is when I said, hey, if you want to sell all your Bitcoin for ETH, I wouldn't mind it. Up 92% against Bitcoin since then. Holding these previous lows, making a bull flag, tried breaking out, and then, of course, we got shit on December 8th. This was when, Bitcoin made its move, and Ethereum outperformed it in a big way, but it's still holding higher lows, and the upturn looks like a bullish flag towards all the way up here, which means that even if you think Bitcoin is done, or 110,000 Bitcoins coming, even if you're a bear, according to Hexbull, ETH might outperform that move by 100%, which means that if Bitcoin goes from here, goes up $20,000, what's that percentage? I don't know, 33%, that Ethereum will go up about 66 to 70% during that same time period.
Yeah, I think we're at that phase of the market where ETH has more upside left in it than Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin, 180,000 is a very conservative target for the top, let's say, of 2026. I think we break 200. I don't know if we get to 244. That's Nick's prediction. So let's just call it 200K. You're looking at a 2x, right? I think Ethereum's got 4x in it conservatively. Maybe we hit the 15K. That'd be a 5x from here. And that's what always happens, right? After Bitcoin goes on a big run, then Ethereum steps in the spotlight, and you see major outperformance for that 6 months or a year, and that's how you get Ethereum. Hell, it ran from $90 to $4,800 in the last cycle, guys. Do we see those kind of multiples this time? Probably not. But from 3,000 to 15,000, 5x. If everything lines up with the business cycle and the macros and everything else like we've been talking about, stablecoin adoption, et cetera, we get Tom Lee continuing to buy, SBT continuing to buy. I think 5x from here on Ethereum is well within the possibility for 26.
Yeah, talking about Tom Lee, we've been saying for a long time that Tom Lee wants to buy 5 million ETH, and they're at like 4. He actually come out and said they want to buy 6 million ETH. So instead of having to buy 1 million more ETH, they've got to buy 2 million more ETH, which is nice to hear. And they're the ones who are apparently still able to raise capital and still getting funding to buy it, buying like 100,000 ETH every single week. So again,
they just staked a tremendous bag. I think
that was a big FUD over the holiday. They're like, oh look, Nick, Bitminer's selling. Oh my gosh! I go, nah, it looks like they're getting ready to stake to me. And then what do you know? 12 hours later, all the news headlines about Bitminer staking. It's like, how did I know that? Number one, the way the transactions look. Number two, I watch a lot of what Thomas Lee is saying, the headlines, the clippings, the full videos, and they had no indication that they wanted to sell, but they did have indication that, hey, unlike SharpLink Gaming, we haven't been staking yet. We need to move these ETH. We have a protocol for how we stake. It has to be like a time-delayed thing. They're trying to be cautious versus SharpLink's just going all in on the DeFi because they can't raise more capital. And what do you know? That's what they were doing. So to me, I just use context clues, logic, and common sense. That's how I kind of make the predictions that I make. And looks like I was right once again. They just staked a big amount of ETH. And why is that good? Number one, it locks that up and verifies Tom Lee. What he says is what they're doing. They're not selling. Number two, that means a percentage of the yield, the daily yield being created out of inflation is now going to strong hands, somebody who's going to compound it, just like we see with SharpLink Gaming. SharpLink Gaming is making like 486 ETH a week, and they're not putting it on the market, putting it in a circular. No, they're compounding it and locking it up. That means that the inflation rate, or the perceived inflation rate of Ethereum, is much lower than it actually is. Now you got SharpLink and Bitminer who are sucking up that ETH and that inflation and just locking it up to restake it.
If you guys are following random accounts on X, anonymous guys using AI to generate tweets, and if you're taking them seriously, you're not going to make it. You're just not going to make it. So I saw the tweet that you're referencing, and there were a number of characters out there causing this FUD or trying to instigate some FUD, I guess, or just were completely misinformed. And I'm like, my goodness, there needs to be some journalistic standards on these social media channels. To be able to just say that a public figure like Tom Lee is selling Ethereum when he's been on record saying, no, we're actually going to look to stake it. No indication of selling it. That, I mean, maybe I'm putting on my lawyer hat, as I sometimes do. That's defamation, in my view, right? If I was Tom Lee and I was a litigious guy, I would find whoever made that tweet and I would sue the shit out of him. We need some journalistic standards on X, but absent that, use your common sense. Use your head. Don't follow random anonymous dude posting AI slop causing FUD. Please, I beg you guys, don't follow these people. There is no indication that Tom Lee's going to sell. If you zoom out, I actually think where Bitmine, SBT are, I mean, they are now where Michael Saylor was like 3 years ago, when Bitcoin was like at the lows and he's like buying it up and everyone's like, this guy's crazy. This is never going to work. And I know there's still some FUD around Saylor, don't get me wrong. But Saylor ain't selling. Tom Lee's not selling. Joseph Lubin's not selling. They're not selling these assets, at least not anytime soon. So remember where we are sort of in the adoption curve. I think Bitmine, SBT, they're very, very early. They're 3 or 4 months into this? Or maybe they started in the summer, 6 months in? So yeah, guys, plenty of room to go, plenty of ETH to buy, plenty of ETH to stake. And I think Tom Lee actually started to issue dividends. 1 cent per share, I think, just went out.
Wow. Yeah, the last thing, I need to check that, because remember, I sold 75% of my stock portfolio when the stocks went to new all-time highs, and Bitminer, SBT were around these levels, and went all into Bitminer, SBT, a little bit of CEA, and a little bit of the Dogecoin one, which I think is like Core Solutions or something. So those are about break-even currently. The last thing I want to talk about before I got to run out of here, I got to get to the car dealership, is Coinbase. If you've been following along, this is supposed to be for, Surf Dial members only, or the Patreon members for Learn Crypto, patreon.com/learncrypto. But I'm giving it to you guys that tune in live and stay till the end. I've been looking for, when Coinbase was up here, a minor new low in Coinbase to give us a bullish divergence to finally get long again. We sold coin for profits at $370, $369. It's currently at $233 per share with a bearish cross here and a setup for a bullish divergence. If Coinbase can literally go just $1 or $2 lower, that bullish divergence will be forming with major support down here at $213, which would fill this gap that was created back here. This is the gap up that we're looking for and we sold into back here in May. So a little bit lower, you got a bullish divergence. If you're like, screw it, we sold at 369, I want to get long again. I'm not in the private groups. I don't own 200,000 surf. I don't pay Learn Crypto. Go ahead and do it. I'll be watching, monitoring, because there is downside risk to fill the full gap, which would be down here closer to $212, $213. And that would be a great trade on Coinbase. And then get us long Coinbase, where they are a proxy for crypto, and I think crypto is going higher, so I think they're going to do well. They have set up Bitcoin and Ethereum strategic reserves, although they are small. If the Bitcoin and ETH goes up, it'll look good on their books for quarterly earnings. They can say, oh, we own $1 billion worth of Bitcoin and $1 billion worth of ETH. That would be nice for them to say. And then lastly, they are getting the stock business, which means they will be getting revenues from stock traders, not just crypto traders, moving forward in the future quarters.
Yeah, if you guys are interested in making trades and working the charts with Nick, I definitely recommend getting in the Learn Crypto group. But yeah, what I respect about how you're operating from a trading standpoint, a lot of patience, waiting for the right entry. I mean, you could have entered in probably 5 times if you were impatient, but here you are, you waited for the signal, so that's a very good sign. I do think Coinbase is going to do well when the bull market returns. I do not own any myself. My stock portfolio is pretty boring. Just, ETFs and things of that nature, and kind of have like a lot of crypto exposure. So I just felt like, let's diversify a bit. Who knows? I'll probably look back in 20 years and go, I should have just put everything in Bitcoin.
No shit.
That's how it always goes, right? Oh, yeah, should have just put everything in Bitcoin. But in the moment, you're like, oh, I should diversify. I should, which is probably right too. But in any event, I know Nick's got to get to the car dealership. I actually got to get to the car dealership as well. My wife's car's got problems, so I got to deal with that. One final comment here from Martin. For the white flags, we'll use the thongs, baby. We'll use the thongs. That reminds me, I need to get back to Tulum. It's cold as shit where I'm at. There's no bikinis. There's no thongs anywhere in sight. Got to get back to Tulum. Got to make some content for you guys, because we were having a lot of fun down there recording content on the beach, asking people their opinions about Bitcoin. So get onto our YouTube, get onto our X. Please engage with the content. Leave some comments. We want to hear from you guys. Leave some comments on the X. Tell us coins that you want us to talk about. Tell us your opinions. Are you bullish? Are you bearish? Why are we right? Why are we wrong? Let's have a genuine conversation. By the way, that's what the X algorithm is rewarding now. It's rewarding genuine engagement and conversations. So get in there, engage. Let's have a fun talk. Helps us, helps yourself. and we're going to keep working hard for you guys. So I know Nick's got to go. I got to go as well. Until next time, guys, we will see you on the beach.
Peace out.